What if the real power isn't in fighting back, but in not reacting at all? Maybe you've felt it. That quiet frustration after being lied to, manipulated, or pushed to the edge by someone who smiles as they do it. You replay the moment in your mind, thinking of the words you should have said, the defense you should have made. But deep down, you know none of it would have mattered. Because people like that don't play fair. They don't seek understanding. They seek control. And the moment you react, they win. That's the game. They want your attention, your anger, your confusion, because if they can shake your peace, they still have access to you. But there's another way, a quieter way, one that doesn't rely on shouting or proving anything. It's not about revenge, it's about restraint. It's not about confrontation, it's about clarity. The kind of strength that Stoics lived by, the strength to hold your center, even when the world around you tries to pull you out of it. In this video, we'll explore how that kind of silence becomes your sharpest edge, and how discipline, not emotion, turns the tables. Take a breath. Let's walk through it together. 1. Evil wears a smile. It never begins with the storm. It begins with the stillness before it, with a smile that feels warm, with eyes that seem to understand you in ways no one else has. That moment, the one that feels like connection, is the most dangerous one of all. Because evil doesn't rush in shouting. It studies, it waits, it wraps itself in familiarity. And when it finally strikes, it already knows exactly where to hurt you. That's what makes it so effective. You think you're falling into safety, but what you're actually giving away is a blueprint to your mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." But in the early stages, strength often feels like openness. We overshare. We over-explain. We try too hard to be understood, to be seen, and every emotional confession, every visible wound becomes information. You are unknowingly handing ammunition to someone who has no intention of protecting your peace. There's a pattern behind it. Manipulators don't just act, they execute. Like strategists on a battlefield, they follow 4 silent phases. First, idealization. You're the one, you're different, you're finally understood. This emotional hook is designed to bypass your defenses. Second, subtle control. They begin to question you, softly, framing control as care. Third, devaluation. You're too sensitive, too much, and you begin to doubt yourself. Fourth, chaos and control. They withdraw, punish with silence, and confuse you until you beg for their approval. This isn't love, it's leverage, and the more emotional you become, the tighter their grip. But what if you chose a different response? What if instead of reacting, you observed? What if you replaced instinct with strategy? Most people think power comes from what you say or do. But the Stoics knew it's what you don't do that often reveals your real strength. The world may provoke you, twist your words, weaponize your kindness. But no one can control the man who has mastered himself. So what's the counterattack to manipulation? Not louder arguments, not proving your worth. It's emotional intelligence. It's the ability to remain untriggered when someone is actively trying to push your buttons. When your reactions no longer serve as fuel, their strategy collapses. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just a quote to admire. It's a manual for psychological warfare. Because the calmer you become, the more they unravel. The moment you stop giving them predictable reactions, you stop feeding their control. You move from puppet to master, and the strings fall away. Samantha, a gentle soul, known for her compassion, once met Leo. a charming but covert manipulator. He praised her insight and emotional depth, but slowly those praises became criticisms. "You're too emotional. Why can't you just move on?" She tried to fix things, tried to explain, but every explanation gave him more power, until one day she stopped. She said nothing. She simply refused to play. And Leo, deprived of his favorite game, unraveled. That's the power of inner stillness. That's what the Stoics meant by discipline, because when your boundaries live inside you, no one can cross them, not even the person you once trusted most. 2. Guard your inner citadel. Have you ever been haunted by a single look, just one, long after the conversation ended? As if someone planted doubt inside you without saying a word. That's no accident. Manipulators don't just want physical access, they want mental access. They want to live inside your thoughts rent-free, pulling strings with a sigh, a pause, a silence that makes you question your worth. And here's the truth. Your greatest protection isn't shouting, isn't posting boundaries online, isn't dramatic exits. It's spiritual discipline. The quiet decision that your peace is not up for discussion, that your emotional state is no longer up for negotiation. Epictetus called this the building of the inner citadel, a mind fortified not with walls but with wisdom. When you ground yourself in self-mastery, you stop bleeding energy into chaos. You stop handing out access to your soul like it's public property. This is where the shift begins, not from good to cruel, but from target to strategist. This chapter isn't about demonizing flawed people. It's about recognizing patterns that rob you of your clarity and reclaiming your power not with rage, but with restraint. You see, manipulators don't fear confrontation. They thrive on it. They twist words, spin truths, flip the script until you find yourself apologizing for calling out what they actually did. But they can't manipulate silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of clarity. The silence of a person who's decided they no longer owe emotional performances to people committed to misunderstanding them. And when you give them nothing, not a flinch, not a justification, not a tear, they're forced to face something they fear more than being exposed, their own reflection. Because reflection is death to deception, and your silence is the mirror they've spent their lives avoiding. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." But today, delay is just the beginning. In the language of modern warfare, delay must evolve into detachment. You need to stop offering emotional obedience to those who haven't earned your presence. This isn't repression. This is regulation. You feel deeply, but you give no one the access code to your reactions. You experience pain, but you hold your dignity. And in that sacred silence, you start building the invisible armor of a stoic warrior. Not the kind that roars, but the kind that endures without breaking character. Because the moment you prioritize stillness over struggle, your energy becomes sacred. And what is sacred is no longer exposed to the cheap hands of manipulation. David understood this. A corporate manager with a sharp mind but a soft heart, he found himself continually undermined by a colleague who played the victim and twisted every disagreement into drama. At first, David tried everything: emails, clarification, HR meetings. But every word he offered became a weapon, until one day he stopped explaining. He said less. He did more. He let his actions speak and let silence build the wall. His colleague flailed. Without fuel, without drama, the manipulator overplayed his hand and eventually exposed himself. David didn't win by fighting harder. He won by becoming unreadable. And unreadable people are uncontrollable. Let's be honest, staying calm when you're misunderstood, mocked or manipulated is not weakness. It's one of the most disciplined forms of power. It takes strength to stay still when your ego wants to scream. It takes clarity to choose your peace over your pride. And it takes wisdom to walk away not because you're broken, but because you finally remember your worth. That's spiritual discipline. It's not about appearing powerful. It's about actually being powerful, in silence, in presence, in precision. It's about walking through the fire with your mouth shut and your standards intact. So from now on, don't chase peace like it's a reward. Let it become your default. Speak only when your voice builds truth. Move only when it aligns with purpose. And let every baited conversation become an opportunity to anchor deeper into your own clarity. Because when silence breaks the cycle, when stillness becomes your stance, you don't just protect yourself, you reclaim the battlefield. And that brings us to the most overlooked weapon of all, detachment, not as distance, but as dominion. Let's step into it. 3. Become unreachable. Have you ever watched someone unravel simply because you no longer cared? Not because you hated them, not because you wanted revenge, but because you finally remembered your worth. That moment, the one where your silence speaks louder than any argument, terrifies manipulators. Because they don't fear your words, they fear your indifference. When you become indifferent, they lose all leverage. You're no longer responding, no longer defending, no longer in orbit around their games. To them, that's ego death. You've stepped out of their script. You've stopped playing a role in their chaos. And nothing shatters a manipulator more than realizing they can no longer reach you. The Stoics taught that true power lies in clarity. Epictetus said, "A man is not hurt by what happens, but by his opinion of what happens." Manipulators count on you reacting not to truth, but to your perception of their behavior. They twist your empathy into confusion, your kindness into vulnerability. They operate in a different game entirely. They're not interested in resolution. They want dominance, emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And if you bring honesty, compassion, and logic into a battlefield built on projection and deceit, you will lose. Not because you're wrong, but because you're using the wrong playbook. This is where emotional intelligence becomes more than a concept. It becomes survival. It's not about being nice. It's about being strategic. These people aren't clumsy. They are calculated. They watch how you react, when you flinch, how long it takes before you doubt yourself. And with every crack in your composure, they build a map, a personalized control system designed to make you chase, explain, and break. That's why the solution isn't confrontation, it's unpredictability. When you stop giving them the same emotional responses, when you stop explaining, apologizing, or justifying, their tactics collapse. Because they can't twist what you don't say. They can't exploit what you don't reveal. Consider Maya. For years, she gave second chances to a partner who used apologies as tools and silence as punishment. Every time she tried to set a boundary, he would cry, call her heartless, remind her of everything he'd done for her. It worked until it didn't. One day, Maya didn't argue. She didn't defend. She just walked. And this time, she didn't look back. Her peace no longer needed permission. She had become unreadable, and in that unreadability, she became unconquerable. Not because she became hard or cold, but because she became sovereign. She stopped seeking closure from someone who only created chaos. She had nothing to prove. That's what Stoics call spiritual discipline. The kind of restraint that turns silence into strength and presence into power. You don't need to become heartless to be free, but you do need to become impenetrable, not by closing your heart, but by choosing who gets to see it. That's what a psychological boundary is. It's not a wall, it's a gate guarded by your clarity. And manipulators hate gates. They thrive in open wounds. They thrive when you let them back in under the illusion of kindness or the guilt of leaving. But once you stop reacting, once you stop needing them to understand, you rise above the board. You're no longer a piece, you're the player, and that changes everything. So here's your new strategy. Replace over-explaining with a clear sentence, followed by silence. Replace taking the bait with a calm pause and a walk away. Replace endless chances with a simple rule. Patterns matter more than promises. These are not just behavioral shifts. These are psychological signals. You are no longer available for manipulation. You are no longer running their script. You've rewritten your own. And when they try to reel you back in with guilt, tears, or half-healed stories, remember, you don't owe your peace to anyone who profits from your pain. You don't owe your energy to anyone who treats your compassion like currency. This isn't about being less kind. It's about being less available to the people who weaponize kindness. And in that stillness, you become something rare. You become a warrior, not with swords, but with stillness. Not through revenge, but through radiant, quiet clarity. Now let's step deeper into the battlefield, not to fight harder, but to stop playing altogether. The most strategic move is coming next. 4. Guilt is the real trap. Have you ever stayed too long, not because you were happy, but because you felt guilty for wanting to leave? That quiet ache, the one where your compassion is used against you, is the invisible chain called trauma bonding. Psychologists gave it a name, but the Stoics, they called it something deeper, attachment to the wrong things. It's that loop where they hurt you, apologize just enough to keep you close, and then hurt you again. Not with open cruelty, but with confusion. Not with fists, but with silence, half-truths, and twisted affection. And if you're someone who leads with empathy, who sees the best in people even when they show you the worst, you're more likely to fall into that trap. Because the cycle isn't built on abuse alone, it's built on your integrity being used as a leash. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." But today, adversity doesn't always show up as a storm. Sometimes it arrives as guilt disguised as love. A manipulator will cry in front of you. They'll tell you they didn't mean it, that they're broken, that they'll change. And your heart, your beautifully human heart, will want to believe them. Because good people believe in hope, not patterns. But here's the Stoic truth. Hope is not a strategy, and guilt is not a reason to stay. Choosing peace is not unkind. Choosing clarity is not cold. It is spiritual discernment. It is the moment when you realize that not every tear is real, not every apology is change, and not every "I love you" is love. Consider Elena. She had a gift for understanding others. She could see pain in people no one else noticed. She thought that made her strong, but it also made her a target. Her partner Mark knew this. He was a master of the guilt game. Whenever Elena tried to leave after being belittled or gaslit, he'd collapse into sorrow. "You're leaving me when I need you most." And each time she stayed, until one morning something shifted. He said again, "You've changed," hoping to reel her in. But this time, Elena smiled. Exactly. And that was it. She didn't yell. She didn't explain. She packed her things, closed the door, and reclaimed her spirit. That's not heartlessness. That's wisdom. That's the moment she stopped being a prisoner of guilt and stepped into the clarity of a warrior. Let's break down how guilt becomes a weapon. It often sounds like, "I said I was sorry. What more do you want?" Translation: I want your forgiveness without earning it. or "You're too sensitive." Translation: "You caught me, now I'll make you doubt yourself." Or the classic, "You've changed." Translation: "You're no longer easy to manipulate, and I hate it." These are not invitations to connection, they're performances, and they deserve silence, not sympathy, because self-worth isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Walking away doesn't mean you think you're better than them. It means you've stopped sinking below yourself just to make the relationship float. You don't need to scream. You don't need to convince them of anything. You don't even need closure. What you need is to choose yourself fully, fiercely, finally. That's emotional efficiency. That's high-performance clarity. Because the truth is, manipulators don't want your love. They want your reactions, your energy, your confusion. That's how they feed. So when you stop reacting, they panic. When you stop explaining, they lose control. And when you go silent, not out of weakness but out of mastery, you become unreadable. And unreadable people, especially those with warrior hearts, are impossible to control. So here's your new Stoic mantra. I am not responsible for someone else's growth, especially when it comes at the cost of my own. You can be kind and still leave. You can forgive and still block. You can love and still say, "This ends here." Let them call you cold. Let them say you abandoned them, because those who thrive on your silence will always be the loudest when you finally speak with your actions. But remember this, compassion without clarity is self-abandonment. And no one is worth losing yourself for. You don't need to become harsh to protect your peace. You just need to become unshakably clear. If it costs your self-worth, it's already too expensive. So when guilt knocks on your door, don't answer with explanations. Answer with alignment. Let your energy return to you. Let your silence say everything. And if this message resonates, pause and breathe, then type clarity in the comments below. And if you're ready to protect your energy with grace, subscribe and walk with us deeper into the Stoic path. Because in the next part, we'll go beyond emotional traps and uncover the strategy that breaks the cycle for good. 5. Detachment is strategy. Have you ever felt like someone was living inside your head, triggering you without saying a word? Just a glance, a pause, a silence, yet it spins your mind for hours. That's not a coincidence. That's design. Evil doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers just enough to keep you off balance. And the only defense in a world that thrives on provocation is detachment, not the numb kind, not bitterness in disguise, but what the Stoics called the art of guarding your mind. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Detachment is that realization in motion. It means seeing clearly without reacting, feeling everything but giving nothing away until your clarity is intact. You don't enter storms that were never yours to fix. You don't chase connection with someone who feeds on confusion. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Detachment, in its highest form, makes you unreadable. And manipulators, emotional predators, they fear the unreadable because they depend on your reactions, your explanations, your defenses. They don't want truth. They want emotional visibility. They test your limits not to understand you, but to weaponize what they find. But the moment you stop over-explaining, stop defending your boundaries, stop giving them scripts, they face a mystery. And manipulators don't know what to do with a mystery. That silence, it's not empty, it's loaded. It's concentrated power. When you withhold your energy, they're left to wrestle with the vacuum of their own mind. That's not punishment. That's psychological redirection. You're not running. You've simply stopped showing up to the game they designed to exhaust you. This is where you move from victim to strategist, from peacekeeper to warrior. And like any master tactician, you operate on 3 levels. First, mental detachment. No more replaying the moment, rewriting your words, or trying to win retroactive battles in your mind. Let the moment die. Second, emotional detachment. You no longer need to label them evil or broken. Just recognize they're unfit for your inner circle. No malice, just distance. And third, spiritual detachment. Let go of the fantasy that closure comes from them. It doesn't. It's an internal event. It happens the moment you stop needing their remorse to move forward. Once all 3 align, you don't just regain peace, you become a fortress of it. Take Caleb, for example. After months of subtle manipulation from a business partner, gaslighting, backhanded compliments, shifting blame, he realized the dynamic wasn't broken, it was built that way. Instead of confronting or exposing the man, Caleb did something far more disruptive. He disengaged. No dramatic exit, no long emails, just calm withdrawal. He stopped reacting, stopped explaining, stopped giving updates. And the silence shattered his manipulator. The man flailed for attention, tried to provoke, tried to bait him back into drama, but it didn't work. Caleb had become unreadable, not cold, clear, and that clarity, it dismantled the entire facade without a single confrontation. Detachment is not about pretending not to care. It's about caring so deeply for your peace that you refuse to trade it for chaos. The Stoic path isn't to shut down emotionally, it's to direct emotion with purpose, to stop bleeding energy where it's not respected. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So you revoke it. You remove the license they once had to shake your spirit. You stop being the reactor. You become the observer, the strategist, the chess master, not the piece. Imagine someone tries to publicly humiliate you. They expect outrage, a meltdown, a defense they can twist. But instead, you offer them nothing, just calm, measured silence, a steady walk away. In that moment, you've taken everything from them because their script demanded your reaction and you gave them none. That's not weakness. That's psychological dominance. And in the Stoic code, it is strength refined through fire. Detachment isn't disconnection, it's discernment. It's walking through chaos untouched because your peace is no longer on the market. And now that we've explored the power of silence, let's look deeper into how to protect it from those who seek to manipulate it. The final move is coming. Stay grounded. 6. Stillness ends the game. There comes a moment in the life of every calm soul when they realize their silence isn't avoidance. It's power, not passive, not cold, but sacred. A form of self-respect so deep it no longer explains, no longer defends, and no longer negotiates its value to be understood. This is the moment when detachment matures. It is no longer about removing yourself from others. It is about remaining rooted within yourself, no matter who tries to shake you. Many people mistake detachment for isolation. They think it's about closing your heart. But the Stoic knows that true detachment isn't distance from people, it's distance from chaos. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about building walls. He wrote about building inner alignment. The fortress isn't around you, it's in you. The one place no manipulator, narcissist, or emotional saboteur can enter. That is self-mastery, not through coldness, but through clarity. You see, manipulators aren't always trying to get back into your life. Sometimes they're just testing to see if they still control your emotions. A glance, a message, a memory. They want to see if they still matter, not to reconnect, but to re-enter. And if you respond, even slightly, they win. Why? Because they're not looking for love. They're looking for proof. Proof that their ghost still haunts your peace. But when you don't react, when you don't reach back, don't explain, don't justify, what they find is a locked gate guarded by something far stronger than anger. Stillness. Imagine someone who once knew exactly how to make you spiral, whether with guilt, flattery, or absence. And now, they try again, and they meet silence. Not the silence of resentment, but the silence of someone who no longer lives in that emotional room. That's when they realize they've lost not just access to you, but access to who you used to be. And that loss to them is unbearable. Because it reveals the one thing they fear most, that you no longer need them, not even to heal. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And the modern Stoic knows this suffering often comes from rehearsing conflicts that no longer serve us. From revisiting conversations we've already outgrown. From trying to offer clarity to people who only speak confusion. But your mind is sacred ground. You don't let every memory take root. You choose what stays. You choose what grows. And most of all, you choose what never gets to enter again. Take the example of Jordan. After years of being drained by a close friend who disguised manipulation as concern, he finally chose silence. No dramatic exit, no passive aggression, just space. Real, unapologetic space. And when the messages came, "Why are you distant? Don't you miss what we had?" Jordan didn't reply. He didn't need to. His silence said what his soul already knew. Peace had become non-negotiable. That's the mark of someone who's done healing. They no longer treat closure as a conversation. They treat it as a decision. Here's the truth. You don't need to burn bridges. You just need to stop crossing them. Detachment isn't about proving how little you care. It's about proving how deeply you've chosen your path. You walk on, not to escape, but to evolve. And every step forward, every silence honored, every reaction withheld, is not emptiness. It's evidence of your return to self. So when they knock again, not with love, but with testing intent, remember this. Your peace is not an invitation. Your growth is not a door left open. The person you've become no longer fits the story they once wrote for you. And when you live in that truth long enough, you don't need to close the chapter. You simply outgrow the book. Let's now walk into the next part of this journey, the trap that looks like love, but is built on guilt. 7. They feed on your guilt. Have you ever noticed how the people who hurt you most are often the ones who come back wearing the mask of sorrow? They don't ask how you are. They remind you how you made them feel. They don't regret the damage. They regret losing control. Because guilt is easier to manipulate than trust. That's why they bring up the good times, cry over your silence, and paint themselves as the wounded hero in a story they shattered. But don't mistake noise for truth. They're not grieving you, they're grieving their lost access to your light. And in the Stoic path, this is where your highest test begins, not with confrontation, but with restraint. Marcus Aurelius taught, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In this case, don't argue your peace. Embody it. You don't need to explain why you left. You don't owe closure to someone who only gave you confusion. Picture this. You've finally healed. You're calm, centered, maybe even content. Then, out of nowhere, they reappear. A long message, an apology, a sudden moment of clarity, but something in your gut tightens. That discomfort is not doubt. It's your inner wisdom speaking. Because authentic redemption doesn't pressure you. It honors your space, even if it's never welcomed back in. You see, spiritual discipline means not just closing the emotional door, it means locking it with clarity. Too many people leave cracks open. They don't respond, but they still read. They move on, but secretly hope. And that's where the cycle begins again. The Stoic doesn't get baited by nostalgia. He guards the mind like sacred ground. He teaches his body that absence is not abandonment, it's realignment. He teaches his soul that peace isn't boredom, it's home. And he teaches his ego that silence isn't weakness, it's self-mastery. This is the warrior's restraint, because every time you reopen what broke you, you lose momentum. And momentum, once lost, is hard to rebuild. The high-performance mindset says, I don't owe the past a new version of me. Let them wonder, let them rewrite history. But you've risen. You're building a life that no longer needs constant recovery. And that, quietly and completely, is your final answer. 8. Kindness with strings attached. Have you ever felt something was off, even as someone was being incredibly kind to you? A strange tension beneath their compliments, an unease behind every favor. That's not just intuition, that's wisdom trying to speak louder than the flattery. Because the most dangerous manipulation never yells, it whispers, it flatters. It says, I'm just trying to help, while slowly wrapping itself around your peace. Seneca warned us, nothing is more deceitful than the appearance of humility. And this is where modern warriors of the mind must remain vigilant. The Stoic battlefield today is not just rage or cruelty, it's strategic charm. The manipulator doesn't look like a villain. They look like support. They show up with food when you're low. They listen when you're broken. They speak your language and reflect your values. But with time, the truth reveals itself. Every gesture had a string. Every compliment was leverage. Their kindness was a blueprint to your weakness. And by the time you realize it, you're trapped, too guilty to say no, too confused to walk away. Imagine someone who always seemed generous. They called you when no one else did. They helped when others turned away. But when you took longer to respond, they grew cold. When you set a boundary, they guilted you. When conflict arose, they reminded you of every favor they'd done. That's not kindness, that's control. And the worst part, they made you believe that saying no to them was an act of betrayal. Stoic wisdom teaches us not to react, but to observe, not to argue, but to understand. When someone uses generosity to keep you emotionally obedient, that's not care. It's covert control. Your only responsibility is to withdraw with clarity, not rage. To step back without explanation. Emotional intelligence means seeing the manipulation beneath the smile. Spiritual discipline means not letting your empathy be turned against you. The true Stoic doesn't need to prove their goodness. They act in alignment with it. They don't seek approval. They embody truth. And when someone demands validation to continue their kindness, that kindness was never real. Manipulators don't fear your outburst. They fear your stillness. Because when you stop reacting, when you start seeing, the entire performance collapses. Your inner clarity creates a wall they cannot scale, not made of coldness, but of peace. And that wall? That's the signal that the game is over. You didn't destroy them. You just refused to participate. You didn't fight for your place. You rose out of reach. And in that quiet elevation, you became untouchable. Let them play in noise. You stay in silence. Because the warrior wins not by shouting louder, but by standing where confusion can no longer reach. And that, right there, is the final form of freedom. If you're walking this path of quiet strength and inner clarity, subscribe now and keep building the kind of power that doesn't need to speak to be felt.